Hey guys, in this tutorial I am going to make a magnet with paper and resin. I've been enjoying doing this lately, so I figured I would make a video and show you how I go about it. I think I go about it a little bit differently than other people would, so I kind of wanted to show that process. It's been easier for me as far as the bubbles go and not having bubbles trapped under paper. And things like that. And here's just some examples of the stuff I've been working on. Here's some with sheet music, and there's Marilyn Monroe. I've been working with rare earth magnets, which are like crazy strong. You see it, you see it even affecting that just from being like a distance away from it. You don't have to work with those if you don't want. There's definitely cheaper, weaker magnets that you can get. I just personally prefer strong magnets, so these are the ones that I am going to use in this project and that I've been using. And here's, oh, these things are so crazy. An example of one that's pulled apart from the rest of the group. So I think these are 3 millimeters wide or thick, so it's a pretty good size magnet. I got those online for like $10 for 50 of them, I want to say, on eBay. These cheaper ones I've seen at Walmart. I don't know how much they cost. I didn't buy this. It's just something that's been on the fridge forever. I can imagine that they're pretty reasonable. So what I've been doing is I've been making the background first. So I know under normal circumstances, this first layer of resin would get poured. This would all be upside down. So that first layer of resin would be poured, and then the paper would be put, and then the black would come last with the magnet in it. That would be the last part. What I do with these ones is the back goes first. So what I've been doing is, and what you're going to need for this project, should you decide to do it, is you're going to need molds that are flat, that are totally flat. You see how you can look in there. Oh, let me get that to focus. Totally flat surface, and in here is a totally flat surface as compared to this mold where you can see that there's definite curvature going on in there. Here's a magnet that came out of that mold, and you can see that there's definitely a curve. Here's one that came out of this flat bottomed or topped or what have you mold, and you can see that it's flat. So we got the curved, we got the flat. We do not want to work with curved molds. We want to work with the flat ones. So I've been working in reverse. What I've been doing is I've been taking these flat molds and mixing up my resin. I'll show you in a little bit. Mixing up my resin and pouring it in, and then once all of it is in there, I'll put the magnet in the wet resin and let it set. I'll mix up the resin. I'll show you how to do that right now. So the resin's going to get mixed up. It can be colored with whatever you want to color it with. You don't have to color it at all. I am going to go ahead and make another one of these because I'm going to use this in our project today. So to make another one, I'm going to be using this mica that I got at TKB. Micas are really, really good at coloring resins. Any kind of powder colorant is great. A word of caution though, some of them are magnetic. This one is not, but there's some blacks, and I'll grab one. Hold on. Here's an example of some other pigments that I like to use that are magnetic. That one is, and oh, this black is. So that's something you want to be wary of. If it's a magnetic color, it's going to be hard to work with it like this. Alright, so I'm going to get my resin all mixed and poured and all of that. If you are totally new to resin, and don't know how to do any of this, I suggest you watch my first video. It's tips and tricks for beginners. Yeah, that should be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to put in my hardener. Okay, now I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to put my gloves on and we'll go from there. So I got my resin all mixed up. There's definitely a lot of bubbles, but it will degas on its own. This brand of resin is actually really good about that. It's Amazing Clear Cast, and it's pretty good about all of those bubbles just dissipating on their own. There's another resin that I use where I have to use a vacuum chamber in order to get all those bubbles out, but that's totally not a problem with this, so that'll do its thing. I'm going to make blue And then I'm going to make black. And I know I just showed you that black is crazy magnetic, like is probably the most magnetic pigment that I've seen. Like all of the colors don't even compare to it, but I found a really cool workaround and it was on accident. So this is black pigment as well, but it's activated charcoal and there is no magnetism to it at all. So that's been a really big deal for me because a lot of the magnets I'm making have that black background. Even that sheet music one I use as a demonstration has black. So if you do this and you want to use black, I suggest activated charcoal. So we're going to put that right there. These have been super handy for measuring out the pigments. They are just, it's, when you go to Starbucks and you get a hot drink, this is stuck in the little mouth part so it doesn't spill everywhere. So anytime we go, I hold on to these and just wash them off and sterilize them and reuse them because they've been great for adding just little bits of powder into stuff like this. So I'm going to take my resin. And I'm going to pour some in here. I got a paper towel over there just in case things get messy, which they generally do with resin. Alright, so I have some blue and I have some black. The stick I'm just going to put right here. This is a mat that I picked up from Walmart for like $1. We're going to take our colorant and I'm just going to grab a little scoop and put some in there. That should be about good. Alright, I'm going to put the lid back on because I don't want any loose powder hanging around because I can be klutzy sometimes and I could probably knock that over pretty easily. So we're going to mix all of that in. Be kind of mindful at first that you don't have to get like crazy with the pigments. You know, you can always add more. So that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that black. So I'm going to let that do its thing. Okay, I'm going to wipe that off. Now I'm going to move on to the blue. I love TKB pigments. I really do. They're so cost effective. This costs like a few bucks and I've had it for a very long time. Okay, I'll get all this cleaned up and then we'll get ready to pour the resin into the molds. So now what I'm going to do is pour my resin into the molds. I'm not going to put the magnet in until after, and I even wait a little bit. I wait like an hour and a half, usually hour, 20 minutes, hour and a half for that resin to thicken up, because if it's not totally flat, if it's even just a little bit inclined in these, that magnet will start to gravitate towards like the corner or the edge, or it doesn't stay smack in the middle. And if you're cool with that, then that's all good. I'm just a perfectionist and I always just want that magnet smack dab in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in my black pigment that we colored with the activated charcoal. And what I usually do is I just drop it smack dab in the middle, or as in the middle as I can, and position it where I want it to be. There we go. I like to make sure the entire magnet is covered, the top of it and the sides and all of that. So that's what I'm going to do right here, is just ensure that it's all covered up. And you can see in this one that that magnet is already starting to gravitate towards the side that's a little bit lower. So waiting a little bit and waiting for that resin to really thicken up, and then putting the magnet in and covering it up will ensure that it's not just going to be running around the mold all crazy with it. Now I'll show you, oh, whatever. Okay, well I already showed you, but I'll show you again what the finished product looks like. So this is what it looks like after it's hardened and come out of the mold and all of that, and it's ready to have the second part of it. So this is what it looks like. You can see that that magnet is in there. Putting it in after and not putting it in the mold first will ensure that it gets a layer of resin underneath it. And for weaker magnets, it might not matter that much, but for these strong ones, I want to make 100% sure that it's totally encased in there, because I don't want it to stick to the fridge when you pull the magnet off and the magnet just stay on the fridge. So this way it's in there, it is not going anywhere, it's there forever. Now for the second part of this comes the paper. And what I'm going to use for this project is I found this really cool flower of life design. So I'm going to cut that out and I am going to seal it into here with Mod Podge. And what we're essentially doing at this point is treating that like a bezel. I have another video that's working with paper and bezels, and a lot of those concepts just cross straight over here. What you're going to want is you need something that's printed out with laser print. It can't be inkjet because inkjet will smear when you try and seal it with the Mod Podge. It will just move around everywhere and it'll make a big mess. This is probably going to be kind of sloppy, but I'm just going to get through this for the sake of moving on with things. Okay, so we have the paper that we want to use, and we have the rest of the magnet, the bezel, if you will, that we want to use. So what's going to come next is I am going to seal that in there with Mod Podge, and Mod Podge is going to keep that resin from permeating through the paper and making it a splotchy mess. So I'm going to do that real quick. In my other video about working with paper and bezels, I give a piece of advice that I am going to give here as well. Always seal something more than you think you need to, because so many times I've worked with paper and I've thought, oh, you know, I've sealed it enough times, it should be fine, and then it's totally not. I go to pour the resin and it like finds just a little spot where there wasn't any sealer on, and it soaks through and it ruins the project. So be patient with it. Seal it more than you need. If you think, oh, that's it, I'm finished, do it one more time, and it'll save you a lot of grief in the long run. Okay, so there's my first layer. I'm gonna let it dry, and I'm gonna do this a few more times, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so it's the next day, and I went ahead and worked on another one, and it's just a sheet music one too. It's real similar to the one I used as an example at the beginning of the video. So I cut out the paper just like I did with that one, and I sealed it all up with Mod Podge and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the resin into those in a little bit. Here is the things that we worked on yesterday that I use as the back of the magnet. So we'll get that peeled out. You could take a look at that. So there you go, there's the back. You see the magnet, it's totally encased in there. I've been getting questions about these molds. I made these molds. All of the molds that I use are this platinum silicone material. I've had questions about how to make them, and I'm waiting on a new order. I ordered a couple more bottles recently, so I'm waiting on them now, and when I get them, I will make a video about how I make my molds. And now we're going to move on to our next step, which is getting the resin poured into the magnets. So I have my resin all mixed up. I went ahead and did that a little bit ago. And I have my stick, and I have some paper towels for cleanup. I'm going to move the camera closer so you can get a better view of what is going on. So give me 1 second. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our resin and dollop it in to our bezel. You can pour it in, but be mindful that it is easy to over pour, and it'll make a big mess if you get too much in there. It'll dome up because the sides are lifted up. There's a meniscus, but you can still over pour and it can go all over the sides, and I've made that mistake before, so just be mindful of your pouring. There's a lot of bubbles in this resin. I didn't let it degas enough, but as it cures, those will start to pop a lot more, and the finished product will be a lot clearer. All right. So that looks pretty good. I'm looking at it from the side, and it looks like it's filled up enough, and now we'll move on to the other one. So now that I have them filled up, I'm going to move the camera down a little bit closer so you can see what that looks like. Move that a little closer, move that a little closer. Okay, so now that they're filled up, what I usually do is I have a clear box that I put them in with a lid, so I don't get debris on the tops of them. But with smaller stuff like this, when I'm not working on a lot of things, I'll just take like a plastic cup or something to that degree and just cover them up. So now these are covered up. There's not going to get any debris in them because there's all kinds of dust in the air and stuff like that. And if you leave them uncovered, you'll definitely see it in your finished piece. And it's not the end of the world, but I prefer them just to be a totally glossy finish without anything in them. So now we're going to go ahead and let these set, and tomorrow they should be totally cured. And now we have some magnets. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at marinasharpdesigns.etsy.com or marinasharp13@gmail.com. And I love answering questions, and I love interacting with people who watch my videos. So please, if you have questions, don't be shy. Feel free to hit me up. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe and all those things that go with YouTube, and I hope you have a great day.